Video contains sensitive courtroom testimony. Viewer discretion is advised. This content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. What happens when your past comes knocking at the courtroom door? Diddy's world is crumbling, and now the last person he ever expected is stepping into the spotlight is Jennifer. Sources reveal she has been called to testify in the federal investigation that's closing in fast. Diddy is in panic because he knows was there during some of the most critical years, and if she speaks, it could change everything. Diddy Combs, once the untouchable king of hip-hop, now finds himself in the fight of his life as his federal sex trafficking trial has entered its third week. But what's sending shockwaves through Hollywood is the bombshell news that his former flame, Jennifer, might be called to testify. And let me tell you, folks, Diddy is panicking. Now, before we get into the latest developments, let's rewind and understand exactly what Jennifer knows about Combs and why her potential testimony has him sweating bullets. Jennifer and Diddy Combs dated from 1999 to 2001, a whirlwind romance that put them at the center of media attention. Their relationship lasted 2 years, with later revealing in a 2003 Vibe interview that Diddy's infidelity was what ultimately led to their breakup. During their time together, they were the it couple of the entertainment world, attending high-profile events and making headlines wherever they went. Remember that iconic green dress wore to the 2000 Grammy Awards? Diddy was right there beside her, and years later in a 2017 Entertainment Tonight interview, he would describe as, without a doubt, one of his greatest loves. But what exactly was happening behind closed doors during their relationship? That's what has Diddy worried. During their relationship, Jennifer was a frequent attendee at Diddy's notorious parties, particularly his famous white parties. These exclusive gatherings, held between 1998 and 2009, often took place at Diddy's East Hampton home, with some in exotic locations like Saint-Tropez and Beverly Hills. The strict all-white dress code was supposedly meant to create a certain pristine simplicity, according to the New York Times. But now, these parties are under intense scrutiny for potentially being breeding grounds for the very activities Diddy is on trial for. One particular event has come under the microscope. Following the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards on September 7, 2000, at the Lotus nightclub in New York City. Photos have surfaced showing and Diddy in what appears to be a heated confrontation at this event. This has gained renewed attention because of a 2024 lawsuit alleging Diddy sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl there. The same night won the Best Dance Video Award. And I have to emphasize, there is absolutely no evidence suggesting knew about or was involved in any illegal activities. But here's where things get really interesting. Jennifer's first ex-husband, Noah, made some truly explosive claims in a 2024 Instagram post. He alleged that attended Diddy's freak-off parties during their relationship. Now, if you've been following this case, you know that these so-called freak-offs are at the center of the prosecution's case against Diddy. These were private gatherings where, according to testimony in the ongoing trial, inappropriate activities allegedly took place. To keep this family-friendly, let's just say these were parties where boundaries were crossed, and consent was questionable at best. It's important to note that Noah's claims lack direct substantiation from any primary sources I've reviewed, and herself has never confirmed attending such events or witnessing any illegal activity. But the question remains, what did Jennifer see during her time with Diddy? What conversations did they have? What behaviors did she witness that could potentially support or contradict the allegations against him? This is exactly why his name has surfaced in court documents, particularly in a $400 million sexual assault lawsuit filed by Derek Lee Smith, a Michigan inmate who alleges that Diddy drugged and assaulted him at a Detroit hotel party in 1997. Even though this alleged incident predates relationship with Diddy, the plaintiff believes may have crucial information about Diddy's behavior patterns given their close relationship. Legal experts have weighed in on this possibility. New York lawyer Pete has suggested that's presence during the infamous 1999 nightclub shooting, and the fact that she left in the same vehicle as Diddy make her a witness with first-hand knowledge, potentially subject to subpoena. Now you might be wondering, has Jennifer commented on all this? The answer is a resounding no. In fact, she's been actively avoiding any questions about Diddy. At an October 2024 autograph signing for her film Unstoppable at AFI in Los Angeles, someone asked her, "J-Lo, do you have any comments about Diddy and the allegations?" Her response, she didn't give one. She simply left with security, clearly wanting nothing to do with the controversy. But here's the thing about subpoenas. They don't care if you want to be involved or not. If the court deems Jennifer's testimony relevant, she will have to appear. And that prospect has Diddy absolutely terrified. Why? Because Jennifer saw a side of Diddy that few others did. She was there during the height of his power in the late 90s and early 2000s. She attended his parties. She witnessed his behavior behind closed doors. She knows his associates, his habits, his temperament. As we consider what Jennifer might reveal if called to testify, let's remember that Diddy's legal team, led by Mark, has dismissed Smith's lawsuit as baseless and untimely, arguing that it falls outside the statute of limitations. They've described the plaintiff as a convicted rapist and serial litigant with an overactive imagination and a thirst for fame. They've also rejected claims of government collusion as conspiratorial nonsense. Clearly, they're doing everything possible to prevent from taking the stand. But the question remains, will Jennifer have to testify? And if does take the stand, what will she say? Will she stand by her ex, or will she reveal damning information that could be the final nail in the coffin of his career and freedom? Let's dive into the devastating testimony that Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura has already given, and how it paints a horrifying picture of the man Jennifer once loved. If Jennifer's potential testimony has Diddy worried, Cassie Ventura's actual testimony has him absolutely terrified. Cassie, Diddy's ex-girlfriend of 11 years, took the stand for 4 consecutive days, from May 13 to May 16, 2025, providing nearly 20 hours of detailed and emotional testimony that has shocked the courtroom and the nation. Cassie's testimony began on Tuesday, May 13, the second day of the trial, and continued through Friday, May 16, the 5th day. Throughout this time, she detailed a relationship marked by physical and sexual abuse, control, and coercion. And let me tell you, the details are absolutely heartbreaking. Let's start with the physical abuse. Cassie described frequent physical assaults throughout their relationship, including being dragged and kicked during a 2016 incident that was captured by hotel surveillance cameras. This video evidence, presented on May 16, 2025, shows without a doubt that Diddy physically assaulted Cassie. She noted that while Diddy's violent behavior was sometimes linked to drug use and jealousy, it was ultimately just who he was. Perhaps most disturbingly, Cassie confirmed a rape allegation from August 2018, stating she had no doubt about the incident, which she described as one of the worst moments of their relationship. Think about that for a moment. This isn't just about a toxic relationship. This is about serious criminal behavior. But the abuse wasn't just physical. Cassie detailed being coerced into participating in what Diddy called freak-offs. Now, to keep this family-friendly, I'll describe these as private gatherings where Cassie was forced to engage in intimate activities with male escorts while Diddy watched, directed, and recorded everything. She felt worthless during these events and feared physical assault if she refused. To cope with the trauma of these situations, Cassie admitted to using substances like marijuana and other items. She paid these escorts between $1,500 and $6,000, with some being flown in specifically for these events. She hired them through various platforms, including some that no longer exist due to their connection with illegal activities. In a particularly emotional moment during her testimony, Cassie broke down into sobs while recalling these experiences, stating that she felt like basically a person who was being exploited. She even stated that she would give back the $20 million settlement from their 2023 civil suit if it meant she could erase these traumatic experiences from her life. Think about how profound that statement is. No amount of money could compensate for the trauma she endured. Beyond the physical and intimate abuse, Cassie alleged that Diddy controlled every aspect of her life and music career. This included having his staff surveil her, taking her phone or passport, and other controlling behaviors. This pattern of control is a classic tactic used by abusers to isolate their victims and maintain power over them. Of course, Diddy's defense team has tried to undermine Cassie's credibility. They presented sexually explicit text messages in an attempt to suggest she was a willing participant in their relationship. These messages included expressions of love in 2019, but Cassie clarified that Diddy's kindness was fleeting and the abuse persisted. They also presented texts from 2014 showing threats over video fears, and 2018 messages discussed dating others, adding complexity to the narrative. But here's the thing about abusive relationships. Victims often stay with their abusers for complex reasons. They may express love and affection even while enduring abuse. They may feel trapped, dependent, or afraid. They may believe they have no other options. This is why it's so important to understand the dynamics of abusive relationships before judging the victims. Throughout her testimony, Cassie was visibly emotional. She took deep breaths, cried, and requested breaks. It's worth noting that she was 8 months pregnant during her testimony, adding another layer of stress to an already traumatic experience. She described testifying as extremely challenging, but also remarkably empowering and healing, expressing a desire to focus on her pregnancy post-trial. Her husband, Alex Fine, has been a pillar of support throughout this ordeal. After her testimony, he stated, "The world has got to witness the strength and bravery of my wife." And he's absolutely right. Cassie's courage in facing her abuser and sharing her story with the world is nothing short of remarkable. The prosecution's case against Diddy is built largely on the coercive element of sex trafficking. They argue that Cassie's fear of consequences prevented her from leaving the relationship, essentially trapping her in a cycle of abuse. They've presented evidence like surveillance footage and witness testimonies to support her claims. The defense, on the other hand, has portrayed Cassie as a strong, capable woman, attempting to undercut the notion she was exploited or trafficked. They've linked Diddy's violent behavior to substance use and jealousy, suggesting these were isolated incidents rather than a pattern of abuse. But Cassie's testimony isn't standing alone. Following her time on the stand, other witnesses have come forward to corroborate her claims. Dawn Richard, for example, about witnessing a 2009 assault by Diddy. Carrie Morgan, Cassie's former best friend, was expected to testify next, along with Cassie's mother in the following week. The weight of Cassie's testimony cannot be overstated. For 4 days, she laid bare the horrific reality of her relationship with Diddy, providing the jury and the world with a glimpse into the private life of a man who has carefully cultivated his public image for decades. And this brings us back to Jennifer. If Cassie's experiences with Diddy were so traumatic, what did Jennifer experience during her time with him? Did she witness similar behavior? Was she subjected to similar abuse? These are the questions that have everyone on the edge of their seats as we await news of whether will be called to testify. The trial's first week ended on May 16, with the judge urging lawyers to wrap up Cassie's testimony to avoid extending into the next week. As of May 19, 2025, the trial is still ongoing, with more witnesses expected to take the stand. But the damage to Diddy's reputation and case has already been done. Cassie's testimony has painted a picture of a man who used his power, influence, and wealth to abuse and control the women in his life. And if Jennifer corroborates even a fraction of these allegations, it could be game over for Diddy Combs. Now we'll explore the full extent of the legal troubles Diddy is facing, from the federal sex trafficking trial to the numerous civil lawsuits that are piling up against him. And trust me, it's not looking good for the once-untouchable hip-hop mogul. As of May 19, 2025, Diddy Combs is in the midst of a federal sex trafficking trial that started on May 5, 2025, with jury selection and opening statements on May 12, 2025. This trial, officially titled United States v. Combs, has now entered its 3rd week, with witnesses alleging coercion into sexual acts and drug distribution at Diddy's parties. The charges against Diddy are serious: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, 2 counts, and transportation for purposes of prostitution, 2 counts. If convicted on all counts, he faces potential penalties of 15 years to life in prison. That's right, life in prison. This isn't some slap on the wrist we're talking about. This is the end of Diddy's freedom as he knows it. The prosecution has presented significant evidence, including the 2016 video of Diddy assaulting Cassie Ventura that we discussed earlier. They've also brought forward testimony from individuals who claim they were coerced into inappropriate activities at Diddy's parties, known as freak-offs. One woman described being taken advantage of at these events, claiming she was given substances and then assaulted. A former employee has also alleged they were forced to procure individuals for inappropriate activities and distribute substances at Diddy's direction. This supports the prosecution's claim that Diddy was running what effectively amounted to a criminal enterprise. Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all charges, and his defense team has tried to discredit witnesses by highlighting inconsistencies and suggesting financial motives behind the allegations. But given the mounting evidence and testimonies, his defense is looking increasingly weak. The trial is expected to last several more weeks, with additional witnesses yet to testify. And as we mentioned earlier, there's speculation that Jennifer could be among them, which would undoubtedly bring even more media attention to an already high-profile case. But here's where it gets even worse for Diddy. The federal trial is just one part of his legal nightmare. He's also facing at least 63 civil lawsuits for sexual assault, with more potentially on the way. These lawsuits, some dating back over 20 years, include allegations of drugging and inappropriate behavior, and are proceeding independently of the criminal trial. Attorney Tony is representing over 120 accusers, some of whom claim incidents dating back over 20 years. 10 new lawsuits were filed on February 28, 2025, ahead of New York's Gender-Motivated Violence Act deadline, which allows previously time-barred claims to be brought forward. This means that even allegations that would normally be too old to pursue legally can now be brought against Diddy. Attorney Van, representing additional accusers, noted that some of his clients have cooperated with federal authorities and could testify in the criminal trial, suggesting an overlap between the civil and criminal cases. This coordination between civil plaintiffs and federal prosecutors is particularly damning for Diddy, as it strengthens both cases against him. Now, let's be clear about something. These aren't just anonymous people making claims. These are individuals who are willing to put their names on legal documents, testify under oath, and subject themselves to cross-examination. That takes courage, especially when going up against someone as powerful and wealthy as Diddy. The sheer volume of lawsuits is staggering. 63 separate civil lawsuits with more potentially coming. Over 120 accusers represented by just one attorney, with more being represented by others. The pattern here is undeniable, and it's damning. Even if Diddy somehow manages to be acquitted in the federal trial, which, given the evidence presented so far, seems increasingly unlikely, he still faces the prospect of financial ruin from these civil lawsuits. And more importantly, his reputation is irreparably damaged. The court of public opinion has already rendered its verdict, and it's not in Diddy's favor. To put this in perspective, let's look at a timeline of key events leading to the trial and lawsuits. On September 2023, Cassie Ventura files a lawsuit alleging inappropriate behavior and abuse, which was settled days later for $20 million. In May 2024, CNN reports federal investigators are preparing to bring accusers to a grand jury. Then in September 2024, Diddy is arrested and charged with sex trafficking and racketeering. He pleads not guilty. In February 2025, 10 new civil lawsuits are filed under New York's Gender-Motivated Violence Act. On May 5, 2025, jury selection begins for the federal sex trafficking trial. On May 12, 2025, opening statements are delivered in the trial. On May 17, 2025, the trial enters its third week, with accusers continuing to testify. This timeline highlights the escalation of legal actions against Diddy, from civil claims to federal charges, culminating in the current trial. It's a spectacular fall from grace for a man who was once at the pinnacle of the entertainment industry. But perhaps the most interesting part of this timeline is what happened in September 2023. Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit against Diddy, and it was settled within days for $20 million. Why would Diddy settle so quickly, and for such a large amount if there wasn't truth to her allegations? It's a question that's impossible to ignore, especially now that we've heard Cassie's testimony in the federal trial. Diddy's legal team, of course, has tried to dismiss all these allegations. They've challenged some accusers' accounts, pointing to inconsistencies, which the accusers' lawyers attribute to clerical errors. They've attempted to portray Diddy as the victim of a witch hunt, suggesting that people are coming forward with false allegations for financial gain. But the evidence tells a different story. The video of Diddy assaulting Cassie in that hotel hallway doesn't lie. The testimony of multiple witnesses who independently describe similar patterns of behavior doesn't lie. The fact that Diddy was willing to pay $20 million to settle Cassie's lawsuit doesn't lie. The truth is becoming increasingly clear. Diddy, Combs, for all his wealth, fame, and power, appears to have used his position to engage in deeply troubling behavior. And now, finally, he's being held accountable. Now let's talk about what the future might hold for Diddy, including the potential impact of Jennifer's testimony, the possible outcomes of the federal trial, and what it all means for his legacy in the entertainment industry. The federal sex trafficking trial is expected to last several more weeks, with numerous witnesses still to testify. The outcome, whether conviction or acquittal, will be pivotal for Diddy's future. If convicted on all counts, he faces 15 years to life in prison. At his age, even a 15-year sentence could effectively be a life sentence. But even if he's somehow acquitted in the federal trial, Diddy's problems are far from over. The 63 civil lawsuits and counting will continue, potentially draining his considerable fortune and further damaging his already tarnished reputation. These civil cases are proceeding independently of the criminal trial, and a verdict in one has no legal bearing on the others. The public scrutiny and media coverage, including the viral 2016 assault video showing Diddy attacking Cassie, have already had a significant impact on his brand. In a symbolic but telling move, Diddy's key to New York City was revoked in June 2024, indicating how far his star has fallen. So what about Jennifer? Will she testify, and if so, what impact could her testimony have? As of May 19, 2025, there is no definitive evidence that Jennifer has or will testify against Diddy in any ongoing legal proceedings. Major news outlets covering the trial have not reported as a confirmed witness. The prosecution's key witnesses in Diddy's criminal trial include Cassie Ventura, Dawn Richard, and others directly tied to the allegations, with no mention of in-courtroom reports. However, his name has been mentioned in legal documents, particularly in Derek Lee Smith's $400 million sexual assault lawsuit. The plaintiff believes may have crucial information about Diddy's behavior patterns given their close relationship. If is called to testify, several factors will influence the impact of her testimony. First, the relevance of her testimony. His knowledge is primarily tied to events from the late 1990s and early 2000s, which may not directly relate to the more recent allegations of sex trafficking and abuse from the 2010s to 2020s. Her testimony would likely be limited to character or historical context, which legal teams might challenge as irrelevant. Second, legal constraints. The statute of limitations is a significant hurdle, as Diddy's team has argued in response to Smith's lawsuit. If the court deems the claims untimely, his testimony may not be required. Third, public and media pressure. The high-profile nature of both and Diddy ensures media speculation, but this does not necessarily translate to legal action. Silence on the matter suggests she is avoiding public commentary, which could influence her willingness to testify. If does testify, she would likely be asked about what she witnessed during her time with Diddy. Did she attend the infamous freak-offs? Did she observe behavior consistent with the allegations against him? Did she herself experience abuse or coercion? Her answers to these questions could either strengthen the case against Diddy or provide him with a rare character witness in his defense. But here's the thing, has been silent on the matter. When asked about Diddy at events, she has either left or avoided the question. This silence speaks volumes. If she had positive things to say about Diddy, if she could exonerate him or defend his character, wouldn't she have done so by now? The fact that she hasn't suggests one of three possibilities. Either she doesn't want to get involved in this mess, she has negative things to say about Diddy that she's not ready to share publicly, or she's been advised by lawyers not to comment on an ongoing case. None of these possibilities bode well for Diddy. Beyond Jennifer, there's the question of what other celebrities might be implicated or called to testify in this case. The judge in the trial has referenced a long list of people and places, likened to an appendix from The Lord of the Rings. This suggests that many high-profile individuals might be connected to this case in some way. There is anticipation of a Diddy list of celebrities linked to Combs, with his name mentioned among others. This has led to speculation about which other celebrities might have attended Diddy's parties or have knowledge relevant to the case. But regardless of who testifies, the evidence already presented is damning. The video of Diddy assaulting Cassie, the testimony of multiple accusers describing similar patterns of behavior, and the sheer number of lawsuits all paint a picture of a man who abused his power and position in the entertainment industry. Research suggests that high-profile figures facing multiple legal challenges often experience lasting career impacts, regardless of trial outcomes, due to public perception and business fallout. In other words, even if Diddy somehow avoids prison time, his career as we knew it is effectively over. His business empire, which includes music, fashion, and spirits, is likely to crumble as partners distance themselves from the toxic association. His legacy in the music industry, once defined by hits and discovering new talent, will forever be tainted by these allegations and the evidence supporting them. And perhaps most significantly, the culture of silence that has protected powerful men in the entertainment industry for decades is finally crumbling. Cassie Ventura's courage in coming forward has inspired others to do the same, creating a wave of accountability that Diddy cannot escape. The ongoing criminal trial and civil lawsuits against Diddy represent a critical juncture not just for him, but for the entire entertainment industry. They send a message that no one, no matter how wealthy or powerful, is above the law or immune to consequences for their actions. As we conclude this deep dive into Diddy's legal troubles and the potential impact of Jennifer's testimony, it's important to remember that at the heart of this case are real people who have allegedly suffered real trauma. Cassie Ventura's emotional testimony, her tears on the stand, and her statement that she would give back $20 million to erase her traumatic experiences remind us of the human cost of abuse. Diddy's trial is expected to conclude in the coming weeks, and we'll certainly be following it closely and bringing you updates as they develop. But based on what we've seen so far, it seems increasingly likely that this is indeed goodbye forever for the Diddy Combs we once knew. Thank you for watching this. If you found this information valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe for more updates on this and other breaking stories. And remember, no matter who you are or what power you hold, accountability will find you in the end.